Hey there everyone, welcome back. As you've probably seen, the death of my coconut video, I went out to the store that day that I found that and I got some orchids. As you can see, I picked up this beautiful Oncidium Orchid. Look at the flowers on that. Absolutely beautiful. This cost me about $20. It's a really pretty plant. Looks very healthy. The pseudo bulbs are really nice and plump. Looks really nice. Except for maybe this leaf here. These leaves look a little bit little worse for wear, and I'm not sure why. I'll have to look into it and get back to you guys on what that is. Or if you know what that is, it's just some discoloration. It might be some underwatering, or maybe there was some spider mite damage way back when. Not sure, but the rest of the plant looks really good. Another one, this was a fantastic find, was this, well, they call it a mini Phalaenopsis. I don't know why they call it a mini. Maybe the flowers are a little bit smaller. But check that flower out. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But this one was on the discounted rack. And as you can see, it was regularly $25 down to $5. Is it focusing in on that? No, it doesn't like to show you prices. Oh well, it was $5. And if you can see here, well, it's got this flower, flower spike. But it also has right here another flower spike, and where is it? Oh, right in here, the leaf is in the way, another flower spike. So that's fantastic. I have 3 flower spikes on this for $5. The ones that were $25 were only 1 flower spike, so I feel like I really lucked out with this one. It's a beautiful flower, and I've got lots of buds on the way. So what this video is basically an introduction to these 2 new orchids of mine. As you know, I also have a Vanda orchid that I'm experimenting with. I have a seedling, which we repotted a few months ago. It's really doing well. I don't have it in this video, but I will do an update video again on it soon enough when it starts growing a little bit more. But I wanted to do a repot video on these. I'm going to do 2 videos, one for the Phalaenopsis and one for the Oncidium. I'm going to do the same method, but we're just going to, I guess they're going to be a little bit different in their methods. Same thing, just a little bit different. Phalaenopsis is a fantastic orchid if you're a beginner. It grows, if you're able to grow an African violet, which I know a lot of you love your African violets, this one will tolerate the same conditions as the African violet, maybe a little bit more humidity. So if you have a pebble tray, so take your saucer that's underneath, put a couple of stones in there, maybe some aquarium gravel, whatever you have, and fill the saucer up with some water, and it'll just bring up the humidity enough to make these guys happy. Again, lower light does well in indirect sunny location. It doesn't like full sun though. This one, on the other hand, when it's in leaf, it likes lots of sun, but once the flower spike starts, it can tolerate the lower sun scenario. So once it starts flowering, you can put it in a nice sunny spot, like on a kitchen table or in the living room, where it gets a lot of light, but doesn't have to be direct. But when it stops flowering, then it needs more full sun. So that's a little bit of the down low on this. So I'm going to set this Oncidium aside. We'll deal with that one in the next video. This one will be for the Phalaenopsis. I'm going to take the tag out. What is this one? Phalaenopsis Ping Tung Gold. Fragrant. Very light fragrance to it. So, what I do notice, and I don't really recommend repotting when you have flowers, it can stress out the plant a little bit, but in this situation I don't really care about the flowers. When you buy these at the at the store, wow, it's really in there. When you buy these at the store, I'm finding that more and more often they're just planting them in sphagnum moss. And there's really nothing wrong with sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is a wonderful thing to grow orchids in, but I find that they really pack this in. As you can see, it's really packed in there. Look at the beautiful roots in there. And sphagnum moss, it holds on to the moisture. It really, really holds it. It absorbs it like crazy. And if it's loosely packed in there, that's fine. It'll dry out fairly quickly as well. But when you pack it in, the outside of the moss will dry out a little bit, but the inside stays soaking wet. And the interesting thing about orchids, well, not all orchids, but a lot of them that we buy for ornamental reasons in the house are epiphytes. So they grow in trees. They just kind of prop themselves up in there, and they're kind of like air plants. So they don't really like to be in soil. So the roots need to breathe, and they also don't like to be standing in water. So what this sphagnum moss does when it's so tightly packed, it acts like soil, but it doesn't dry out. So these roots will start rotting. I've just learned this from personal experience. I've killed many orchids that have been packed in like this. As you can see, it's really difficult for me to pull this apart. And again, sphagnum moss is a wonderful additive to your soil because it's very quick to retain the moisture and it will hold on to it. I tend to use sphagnum moss as a teller whether I should water or not, but not as a soil medium. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. I'm just going to pull this soil out, or sorry, the sphagnum moss out from around these roots carefully. Just going to take a moment and pause this video, and we'll come back into it and I'll have this all cleaned out. It's going to take me a little bit of time, as you can see. Okay, so we got all the sphagnum moss off of the root system. As you can see, it's incredible how much sphagnum moss was actually packed in there. And I was pleasantly surprised. As you can see, the root system here looks fantastic. It's not what I was expecting. Generally, when you wrap it in sphagnum moss so tightly, you'll notice that all of the inner roots are dead. These ones look really, really well, look really good. So all you're going to do is notice how there's these dead roots there. They're just all brown and sucked up. They're dead. They're crunchy. We're just going to cut those off. You don't want those in there, and you're going to use a sterilized pair of scissors. These scissors I just finished washing, but you can use some rubbing alcohol and just rub rubbing alcohol on with a cotton ball. I can't get the words out. And yeah, then you'll sterilize your scissors. It's hard for me to talk and think about this at the same time. Okay, these roots look really, really good, like I said. Just going to chop off any of them that look a little nasty. This one here looks like it's rotten. There's lots of roots here, so I can be a little picky. Had some life in it, that's alright. This one here looks a little worse for wear. Throw it across the room, why not? Alright. So we've cleaned that up really, really good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm using for a soil medium. What I have here You've probably seen it with my Vanda orchid. I tried it for the first time and I really like it. This is a terracotta ball. It's used for hydroponics. It's terracotta, and then inside is a charcoal center. So when it's moist, it keeps it from stinking. So that's a nice alternative. Also here is the Orchid Bark, the fir bark. Let me just grab some here. This is another material that's commonly used. I used to use this until I found this this hydroponic medium, and I really like this one because it stays. If you soak it, it soaks up the moisture, but it never has enough to rot the roots. I add in some sphagnum moss to hold on to some moisture, and that is also a tell for me when it's time to water it. Once the sphagnum moss in here starts to get dry, then I know to soak it again and rehydrate the plant. So this would be the same idea. You would soak this in water, as I've got these beads here. Soak them in water, let them soak up the moisture, and then use it to pot your plants. Don't use the dry material to pot your plants up. You can. It's just a dusty, yucky material, and then when you try to water it, all of this will start floating, and that's not fun. Let's put that back in the bag. But again, I really like using this material. And what I also did here is in this bowl, I threw some fertilizer in here. It's just an all-purpose fertilizer. This is a 10-15-10. I just put 3 or 4 drops in this water, and this material is soaking up the fertilizer so that the roots will take that in as it needs it. So that's how I'm doing it. There's many ways to deal with it. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to throw a couple of these beads in the bottom. Actually, I'm going to reuse some of this sphagnum moss and put it just to cover the hole at the bottom. Throw a couple of beads in here. Then we're going to just lightly put this plant in the pot. And remember, all the roots don't need to be in the pot. They are epiphytes. They live in the trees, so their roots sprawl all over the place. It's actually nice to see that. So I'm just going to make sure to get some sphagnum moss in there as well. Fill in all the holes with these little pebbles. Try to get between the roots. This is just pretty well just an anchor for your plant. Try to get your plant as straight up and down as possible so it looks nice. In another episode, we'll deal with how to water these. But for now, we'll just deal with planting. Really don't need to add any water to this yet because these beads, like I said, are soaking up water, and the sphagnum moss has water in it as well as a feeding in there too. The plant food. Okay, so as you can see, the plant is firmly in place. Oh, the flower looks pretty in there. It sits up above the soil level, or the media. You don't want the crown of the plant to be submersed under the soil that you use, or the media that you use. A big thing for orchids is they suffer from crown rot, which is the base will rot if there's any standing water around it. So just be aware of that. It is a common thing, so as long as you plant it above the soil surface, then you should be fine. Also, when you're watering, you don't want to have any water sitting in the crown either. That is a bad thing, and I'll show you that when we do the watering video. Very easy to solve, but it's good to keep in mind. So we had some spikes for the flower to keep them growing upright. If you don't use these stakes, your flowers will just they'll still look nice, they'll still flower, but they tend to meander off to the side. If you use these stakes, they stay growing upwards, or whatever way you would like them to point. So let's just stick that in there. Put this clip on here, and wonderful. So there we go, the Phalaenopsis Orchid is now repotted. Now what I'm also going to do, I use these pot covers, and I stick the pot right in there, and when it's watering time, I'll just fill this pot up with water, let it soak for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then pop everything out, drain every bit of water out of there, and we're off to the races again. And also to keep in mind when you're buying pots for orchids, because they're epiphytes, they need a good air circulation around the root system. So these special pots for orchids allow for good air circulation, as you can see. If you don't have any of these pots, that's fine. You can always poke some holes in your plastic pots in order to get good air circulation in there. So if you don't have these pots, that's fine. You can make do and just put slits or anything to allow air movement through. I've also planted them without any air circulation, and they do okay, depending on what kind of soil medium you use. Generally, there's good air circulation through those. Anyway, join me on my blog. I'm going to do an orchid repot on the blog as well. I might have missed something here that I might touch on in writing that I haven't touched on in this video. Yeah, so anyway, happy growing, and stay tuned for the next repot video of the Oncidium Orchid.